On the 30th of May 2024, I sat at the last row of a congregation. I wore a checker shirt. My sister had gifted me that shirt, and then with a brown chinos trouser, preferably more of a cotton color. Like that's the kind of, yes. And we're under a yellow tent. This congregation was less than 20 persons, but I fixed my gaze on the preacher because he taught a sermon, and it was on the subject of VOWs, vows. I initially thought he was going to talk about marital vows, and but this day it was different. He talked about vows towards God and vows towards one another. But the interesting thing about this was that after that sermon, almost everybody in the congregation had a question. People wanted to ask about what he just spoke on, and they wanted to get solution. A woman asked the question of a vow she made to God while her younger sister, if I'm not mistaken, was ill, and she promised God that she was going to give God any animal that had 4 foot, or the 4-footed beast, and in all of that. And then God kept his end of that vow, and her sister was restored. Until the day she was asking that question, she had not redeemed the vow. And then the preacher told her, he gave an answer to that. And the essence of this video is not really to teach or preach on vows, not really. But stay with me, you would get something at the end of it, I'll show you. Now, the preacher gave an illustration of his high school classmate who currently is roaming the street of eastern Nigeria, suffering from bipolar disorder, which means she's mad, that is, she's insane. And the reason for this is because she had earlier made a vow with her then lover that they were going to get married to each other, and they sealed it, licking their blood. Down the line, it happened that this lady broke this covenant, and the repercussion came in that form, and now she is insane. You see, that didn't end there, because further measures were taken. They had to search for the young man, they had to call him and see if he could forgive her, and things could just be done so that she can regain her sanity. Fun fact is that the young man forgave her and everything, but it didn't change what had happened, and she is still insane even at the point of recording this video. And that was an illustration the preacher had given. Because of the atmosphere we were in at that point and the kind of questions people were asking, I took it upon myself to make further study on the subject of vows, especially the vows towards God. And I went back and I did my research. In the course of my research, I came across a video by Pastor Benny Hinn. Some of you must have seen that video where he talked about a vow to God, and he told God, because Pastor Benny Hinn is Israeli, he's an Israelite, and but he grew up in Canada. And then he told God that if God was going to grant a successful migration process for his family to move from Israel to Canada, that he was going to give God a jar of oil. He forgot about this. And you know what happened? God kept his end of the vow, and they had a successful migration to Canada. Yes, one of those days he said, because he shared this story himself, he said he heard a voice that asked, "Where is my jar of oil?" He had to go to the store, buy a jar of oil, and he took it to his pastor or his priest, or the church where he worshipped. And the priest or the pastor didn't even ask a single question. He gave it to him and he left. He redeemed that vow. Now, I took steps to check through scripture, and you'll know this popular story of a man who made a vow to God that if God is going to grant them success, like victory over their enemy in the battle, that he's going to give to God the first thing that welcomes him when he returns from battle. Now, unfortunately, when he came back from war, his daughter, only child, was the first person that came to welcome him. You can imagine the excitement. You can imagine the joy on that girl's face. And the father was weeping. And he was like, oh, my daughter, why have you done this to me? Why have you? But wait, I brought this up to bring you to the biggest lesson I picked in the course of this study. I would not be able to share with you everything I learned, but I'm going to give you the biggest. And you know what that is? You see, regarding vows, God hears. I assure you, God hears and God keeps his end. But I want to beg you, please don't make a hasty vow. Secondly, don't be forced to make any vow. And thirdly, be careful of the things you say. I don't know how to overemphasize on this, but I'm begging you, be careful of the kind of vows you make. Now listen to this. God is not really impressed with the weight of your vow. No. God is concerned on your ability to redeem your vows, not the weight of what you say you will give, but were you able to keep it? And God takes vows very, very, very seriously. I actually heard the story of a man. This is like over 10-15 years ago, if I'm not even mistaken. And this man made a vow to God and told God that before he builds his own house, that he's going to build a house for God. The man was already advanced in age and did not have a house to himself. And the vow he had not kept. I'm bringing this up to say that don't make a vow you can't redeem. And if you've made a vow to somebody and you can't redeem that vow, go and beg them.